This is Family Time 138. We're talking about ethical constructs. The idea of ethics is a pretty complicated subject. You can take college courses on ethics. There are people who study the idea of ethics their entire lives. Ethics is difficult because it exists in the gray area. And so often in life we want things to be black and white. We want them to be right or wrong. Unfortunately, that's how a lot of things are presented to us. As this side is correct, so then the other side has to be incorrect. That's not always the case. It's often a matter of perspective. It depends what side you're on. It depends on your background. It depends on a whole variety of things. And that's where ethics is important. If we understand different ethical constructs, we can help ourselves when we have to make decisions that lie in those gray areas. And that's a lot of life. So often we're making decisions and we don't know if they're the right decisions. I think of that every day as a father, as a teacher and a coach. I feel responsible to a lot of people. And I know that I'm not always making the right decision. I'm not always giving the perfect guidance to my children or to my students. I maybe am a little too tough on one person, and maybe I let something go a little too far, a little too loose with somebody else. There's never going to be the perfect formula for everybody, and individuals are going to need different things. We have to, especially as we get older in life, we have to make decisions, and we're not sure if they're right or wrong. It helps to have a code. We've talked about before having core beliefs and being able to identify those and define our core beliefs, because that allows us to have a foundation. It gives us something to measure our decisions against. And that's where ethics comes into the picture as well. There's a few things specifically we've talked about before that are important to revisit. They're identified in our social emotional learning competencies. Those are the ideas of equity, fairness, justice, and respect. These maybe overlap a little bit and they can be difficult to define, but the idea of equity is things being equal. And then fairness doesn't necessarily mean equal. Think of it this way. If you do a group project, you put in a lot of work, and maybe some of the other people in the group don't put in as much work, and you all get the same grade. That's equity. It's equal distribution of the grade. But is it fair? One could argue that it's not fair because one person did more work and they got the same grade as everyone else. You could also argue that if you knew those were the guidelines ahead of time, that no matter how much work you put in, everybody was going to get the same grade, you might be able to argue, well, that it was fair. You knew, so you didn't have to do the most work, but you wanted to get a good grade. That becomes that gray area a little bit. Is it fair? Justice is sort of the implementation of fairness. I think most people have a strong desire for justice, and it looks different to different people. But we all want to be treated fairly. And that's one of the hardest things. From the time we're little, if we feel we've been slighted, we feel like something isn't fair, we're not being treated fairly. Most of us feel very strongly about that. And if we feel we've been slighted or someone we care about has been slighted, we want justice. What actually constitutes justice, again, becomes vague. And that ties in with the idea of respect. We all want respect. And when we're not treated with respect, we feel that sense of injustice. We have to remember that when we interact with other people, because pretty much everybody wants to feel some sense of respect, and there are different types of respect. We've discussed this before, but there's the base level of respect we should give to all people. Just respecting their right to exist and be themselves and have their own beliefs. And then there's a deeper level of respect that can only be earned. That's a deep admiration for specific qualities someone else possesses. Those things all overlap a little bit, but they're important in the when we're looking at constructs of ethics. And in class, we'll spend a little bit more time looking at some different ethical constructs. Things like ends-based thinking and rule-based thinking and care-based thinking. But I just want to set the tone for this week and consider that. Consider your framework of ethics. Where do you lie with certain beliefs? Think about your core values. Think about how you try to make difficult decisions. How you try to define right and wrong. And how you would act in different difficult situations you have had. So we're going to talk about that this week. And I want you to try to consider which ethical constructs you maybe agree with and how you try to define your sense of ethics, your sense of right and wrong. Until next time, much love.